Joined Grant McCagg, the editor-in-chief, owner, operator of Recrutes.ca, and co-host of the new podcast, the Recruits Podcast. Welcome to the show, Grant.
Well, you said and then you were gonna say something else there, but
Well,
was it like really great guy and you changed your mind or what? What were you
we,
gonna say?
we could go with that if you want,
Okay, good, perfect answer.
because I want to make this a family show. I don't want to make it.
How you doing?
Good. I'm doing great.
Excellent.
How about you?
Oh yeah, couldn't be better.
Yeah. You're
Yeah,
you're out there flying around. You're on Tony's show, Tony Marinaro show. You got your own podcast. You're uh
yeah,
you're looking a lot busier now.
yeah. Finally, you know, hit the big time high enough to get back on your show. So that's good.
It did take a lot. I mean, your agent was very demanding in the contract, but I figure we evened it out.
What do you think of you like my new sweatshirt or what?
The new merch, yeah, it's
Yeah.
nice,
Yeah, it's a beauty, eh?
and
Nick from
that
Insta
merch is
Customs sent me that.
okay.
I went to talk to him the other day on Twitter, but I noticed his account's suspended, so I don't know what that's all about, but
Must have said something about Elon Musk.
probably.
Is that merch for sale now? Do you got a website for it?
No, no. Nobody can have,
It's
nobody but
exclusive.
I can wear this. So that makes it that much more special. When I come on these shows, it's like, wow, one in a 6 billion, 7 billion.
There
How
you
many
go.
on the planet now?
Uh,
7.5?
I think it's closer to 8 now.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. China, there's
Russia's
like a
working on
half a
that.
billion more every couple of years there, it seems like. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
good.
Well, Russia's working on lowering the population right now.
Yeah. Yeah, we could have a whole podcast discussion about that, I'm sure.
If I were ever allowed to speak about politics publicly, maybe.
Yeah.
Um, but we'll go back to hockey, and I brought you on so that we can talk about prospects, the Canadiens prospects, the upcoming draft. You have a draft list that's coming out soon. Um, so why don't we just start with the Habs prospects? Um, it's been a long time since the Canadiens have had this deep a prospect pool of players who could legitimately play in the NHL.
I agree. I think it's been at least a quarter of a century, you know. We're looking back at the Eric Desjardins, Patrice Brisebois, Matthew Schneider, Patrick Roy, Stefan Richer, Shane Carson, that group in the early 80s that Serge Savard, and he had a great scouting staff at those times, and I think a key was that they had a lot of top 90 picks over a stretch there. Serge knew that. I think he learned from Sam Pollock, the best there ever was, that you only hit on 1 in 3, maybe if you're lucky. So if you have three, you're gonna hit on one for sure. So get three every two, get three in uh every 40 picks or whatever if you can. And Bergevin, it was nice that Bergevin the last 2 or 3 years, I think, caught on to that, you know.
Yeah.
Um and he stockpiled a lot of picks, and I think we're seeing the fruition of it there now, where all these kids are getting signed that are promising. And it's been a long time that we've had that, and over the next year, you're going to see Laval is going to be at least half the team is going to be good young prospects. And it's been many years since that was the case. It seems like you know we went through two or three GMs that wanted to keep trying to win too quickly. And I don't think that was the approach it had to be taken. I think they needed to get a lot of draft picks over a 4 or 5 year period again, and the more draft picks you have, the more guys you hit on. It's that simple. Like there's no other tried and true method of drafting well other than having the quantity. And if you have the quantity, then you will end up, just the numbers tell you that you'll end up with the quality, and then it's happening with the Habs.
Yeah, and as much credit as we can give to Hughes and his development program and the drafting that they've done they've only had one draft so far. It was a good draft, but they've only had the one. So the majority of these prospects are the ones that have been handed over from Bergevin and Timmins, like you mentioned.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think what one of the many things I haven't there's no parts of the new regime that I have you know that I think that I can say anything negative about. And one of the positives is that and I think this is something that he's done better than Bergevin did, is that he's signing the picks and has full intention on developing them properly. Seemed like there was a disconnect at times between, Timmins would draft the players and then Bergevin wouldn't sign them. And, it's tough to get better, I think, when you're drafting free agents, or you're, you're, you're not signing your draft picks and believing in them, and at least having the patience to sign them and to try to develop them. Montreal seemed to take the approach that Bergevin would rather sign free agents from the Quebec League, especially, that were never drafted, and then not have the contracts to sign his own draft picks, which think he had to have a bit more patience there with, and a bit more trust in what the scouting staff was doing, because they'd end up going to the farm team and then not getting a really good opportunity, not developing, losing their confidence at the pro level, and never developing. So Hughes is, since he took over, he signed a pile of picks from the previous, regime, which tells me that he thought that, at the end, Timmins and Marty drafted well, and that you sign these guys and you try to develop them properly, and hope that you can build from within, instead of always trying to get the journeyman 22-year-old or kid that never got drafted, that nobody else really wants, and end up signing him and hoping that he develops it, as opposed to like a top 60 pick, like a Josh Brook. Like, it just I've talked to Trevor about it a few times, and it frustrated him as much as it did me that, kid like that didn't really get a chance, and never got a chance in the power play in Laval. And he was maybe the best power play guy in junior hockey, his last year. Yet, Bouchard would trot out Willette for every power play, who had never scored 25 points as a pro, at 27 years of age, was not going to develop into an NHL power play guy, but instead of ever trying Josh Brook as a power play defenseman, he either sat him on the bench or put him up at forward, or, used him on the third pair and would never use him on the power play. And it was stuff like that where I think Hughes he's made a point of it. Hey, developing is trusting in the draft picks that you made, signing them, developing them properly, getting the skills coach that Bergevin never got. All that stuff, I think, are moves in the right direction. Bergevin did a lot of great things. I thought, like, he was a very good trader. Like, there was only a couple times that he didn't really make good trades, but coaches not being on the same page as the scouting staff, the coaches that he hired, signing them long term, so they had, they didn't have to change their philosophies, or
Yeah, they were
they were stubborn.
immune to criticism. at that point.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then and there not being that uh continuity within the organization that Hughes has gone out of his way to do that. And I think, I mean, it was frustrating for the scouts too. I know that you draft these guys and then they don't get the opportunities, and it's just it didn't develop goodwill within the organization. And I think Hughes has a lot better approach to it than Bergevin in that regard, and it's only going to pay dividends, I think, in the future.
I agree. And in looking at the approach both GMs have had, I mean, he came up through hockey as a player. Uh, he was a journeyman defenseman, and you kind of saw he had a penchant for those hardworking types because that's what he was. Whereas Hughes, he's a lawyer, he's an agent, he's got more of those reading people skills. He's able
Mm.
to marry up his vision with these players and kind of get them motivated and pushed in the right direction. So the approach of the two GMs, while I agree that Bergevin had great track record trading, Hughes, I think, was going to have a much better track record overall uh, because of his focus on draft development and personnel. Because now all these players that are showing up, they're being given opportunities. And when they're shown that they're getting opportunities, not just power play at Laval or whatever, it's when they get call ups. They put in the work, they get the call up. And free agents see that. So now Montreal can become a little bit more of a destination for free agents because of it.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. And so does our Yorkie apparently. He's at the door barking. I'm down here alone, so you might have to put up with a little bit of barkage here. Uh no, and you make a good point about sorry, who did you say? Bergevin? I can't pronounce it nearly
Yeah,
as well as you. Is that close? Bergevin?
pretty close. I mean, you're in Ottawa. You should be able to
Yeah, okay. Bergevin
parlay the
isn't
two.
Bergevin is my version. Bergevin isn't okay. No, I'm not that bad with it, but yeah, Bergevin. That's that's about as close as I. How about I call him Bergie? Is that
Fergie.
yeah?
Yeah. But now that we've covered that part, we could break into the prospects themselves. Um,
Right.
there's one prospect that I wanted to bring up that uh, a lot of people are kind of disappointed with, but I want to give him a little bit more time, and that's Jan Mishak. He's had a bit of a disappointing
Yeah.
year in Laval.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, how old is he?
21,
20, maybe. Might have
just
just
turned
turned like
21. Some
at the start of
Yeah,
the year he was 20, right?
yeah.
So, a kid that's played what, maybe 100 games in North America before this season, 20 years old. Exactly. I think maybe we expected a little more production from him than we've gotten. That's fair to say, but I'm not surprised that it took him, some adaptation there, we'll say. And yeah, I've I've liked what I've seen from him recently, like in games that he's I think he's getting used to the pace, the size, the maturity, the skill. It
Mhm.
I mean, I didn't have high expectations for him, to be honest with you. I kind of see him as a bubble guy for an NHL spot. So uh just looking at the points and you think, okay, well, he's a long shot for sure. But uh, it may be another team that he ends up making the NHL with, because I think Montreal's, in the pecking order, he's probably somewhere 15 to 20, among prospects at this point.
Yeah, he's falling down that depth chart.
But it's the top 14 are very good prospects. And
Yes.
I think you're going to see some of them move on and play on other teams. And perhaps Mishak's one of them. And perhaps he's a guy that ends up uh, playing 2 or 3 years in the HL and then moving on to another team. But Montreal wants those character kind of guys in the bottom line roles, and that's certainly, part of his game for sure. Where I think he's the kind of player that you want to have in your bottom two lines going down the road.
Yeah. Yeah,
Whether
exactly.
it's him or not, I mean, is another question. But same with Harvey Pinard. I see him as a really nice, just someone that is going to give his heart and soul every game. Uh, whatever role you put him in, kind of like a Lekanen type, where, well, we'll put you on the first line today. Okay, sure, and do his job defensively and work hard like he does every game. Harvey Pinard's that type of player too. I can see, and Mishak's a bit like that as well. So, give him another year or two in the AHL. I think the point totals will increase every year. And who knows, he might carve out a niche as a utility guy that you can count on to give 100% every game.
And that seems to be the type of player that they're trying to find, is that hardworking, team first type of player, the kind of player that will focus on their defensive game, but also give a little bit of the jam on that going forward. Now,
Right.
there's the Arky.
Maybe this will quiet him down.
Maybe.
There.
But
That's Ted. Yeah.
That's Ted.
Yeah.
Ted Danson. Look at the hair on him. Look at the hair on him.
We're going to groomer on Thursday. It's been 5 months.
Oh.
The winter time, eh? You don't bother.
Yeah. No.
You don't want them to freeze. So sorry.
But back
Go
to
ahead.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Back to the prospects. There's another center that doesn't get a lot of discussion about him, and that's Jared Davidson. He was an overager that they drafted a little bit later in the draft, but he goes back to the WHL and he's leading his team in points. He's a massive goal. He's an important goal scorer for them, and now they're doing really well in the playoffs because of his work ethic, his drive, the approach to the game that he makes, just like the players that we just mentioned.
Yeah. Yeah, he's another one. I really liked him last year, and I was glad to see him drafted. I think there were a lot of teams that wouldn't have picked him because he was he's already passed over before and stuff, and he's not a great skater. It's the same with Mishak, and it's the same with Harvey Pinard. They're not excelling because of their skating ability. It's everything else. And Davidson is such a smart, competitive kid that he's going to be a great AHL player, I think. And who knows down the road, the fact that he can play center is, I like Montreal's approach, and you see it with a lot of teams where as many of the guys on the forward roster as possible can play center, because situational face-offs and what have you. Guy gets thrown out, next guy that comes in, he just happened to be a good centerman, a good face-off guy too. It's important, those little getting possession of the puck. So
Yeah.
the more centers in the top 12, the better, as far as I'm concerned. Just like the Canada Cup teams, how many World Cup teams Olympic teams, what, 9-10 centers out of the forward roster?
Yeah.
So centerman can always play wing. It's easiest transition there is in hockey. So I like that approach as well. And Davidson, he'll be Laval's going to be a very strong young team next year. It's going to be really fun to watch him next year for sure.
Oh yeah. Oh, definitely. I mean, they're doing their playoff push right now, and they've got some very good young talent making a difference on that team. Emil Heineman showing up and just lighting up the AHL.
Yeah, yeah. I think he's more suited to the North American game than the Swedish, the SHL. Really, he's a burly kid. He's pretty strong, good along the wall, north south type of game. Really good shot, smart. He pushes for a spot next year for sure. Like I think
Yeah,
Guryanov. People talk about Guryanov. I just assume give that opportunity to Heineman than Guryanov at what, a third of the price. So take that 2 million and put it towards Caulfield's contract extension, or getting a free agent, or what have you. So I think he has a really good, because he had a very good camp. You know, and if he does that again next year after what he's shown in Laval so far, I think he stands a good chance of winning a spot next year.
I honestly think he is going to be in that mix as well. But on Gurianov, I mean, he doesn't have to. They don't have to offer him the qualifying offer. They could
No,
sign him for a really cheap 1 year deal, and if he doesn't make the team, waive him. Who cares,
yeah,
right? He can, if he doesn't want to play in the AHL, he can go to Europe if he wants, or someone will pick him up, and that's fine. It's very low risk. It really doesn't hurt the Canadians in any way because if he does, the only reason he would be kept is so that they can keep somebody on the NHL roster so that younger guys can get more playing time down in Laval. Guys like
yeah,
Roy or Kidney, if they decide to move him up, I think he can still play junior. But those types of players,
yeah, exactly. You know, uh, I mean, it may be Heineman. You know, maybe they
yeah,
decide Heineman. We'd like to give him another half a year in the AHL, or what have you. Yeah, exactly. If they do bring back Guryanov, I don't think it will be because they gave him a qualifying offer. I think it'll be that scenario, as you say, where he signs at 1.5 million for a year and say, look, we wouldn't mind you back, but we can't, you know, 13 goals a season, you know, in the top six, top nine role isn't a $3.5 million contract. Sorry, you know. Uh, I think, yeah, I can't see them giving him a qualifying offer. And as you say, perhaps he comes back. I think, it sounds like Marty likes the kid, like the comments he made about him after all the kerfuffle about, you know, not wearing the jersey, the rainbow jersey and stuff. You know, uh,
yeah,
and any time I've seen him interacting when the camera's on him and stuff, he looks like not like a Markov type Russian that's just acerbic and doesn't really say anything. I think he's got a bit of, he's a bit personable and seems like not a bad kid. So, maybe they do bring him back. He certainly, you see glimpses, at times. If
yeah.
he ever got consistency, it's kind of like the Russian Armia, like,
Why do we have both on the same roster though?
yeah, yeah. Well, that's it. Do you want to, like,
Well, one's
go
when
out and
one's
get the
not
Finnish
playing well, the
Armia?
other one does.
What's
So if one
that?
doesn't play well, if one doesn't play well, the other one does, and then vice
Yeah.
versa.
Yeah. Well, you know, uh, yeah. If Bergie was still here, he'd go get the Russian Armia, the Swedish Armia, and the Canadian Armia, and but yeah, I think I I, I would prefer to give that role to either a free agent or a young lad that's got more consistency. And the only thing people like to say, well, he's got size though, and he needs size. But if you don't use your size, it doesn't matter that you have size. And you know, he could be 6'8". If he doesn't go in the corners and do some banging, it doesn't matter. So I would like to see them have somebody in that role that brings a little more sandpaper. You know.
Now, speaking of sandpaper, Jaden Struble, he signed his contract, joined the Laval Rocket for the on an AHL deal for the rest of the season. He's brought quite a bit of grit and sandpaper to the roster in these
Yeah.
last few games.
Yeah. Well, does that surprise you?
No,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
He's
how much more does he really need? Does he need another full season, two full seasons with Laval, or do you see more the NHL window closer?
uh he doesn't look that far off. Have you seen some of the games?
I have.
Yeah. I mean, he's making a real nice first pass. He certainly can keep up at the HL level, no problem. He's got the skating ability. He's got the that little bit of edge to his game. Um, it's a numbers thing, really, is the only, you know, uh, he'd probably play a full year in Laval, I think, next year. And you'll reassess it at the end of the year. I mean, there'll be injuries, I'm sure, next season, and he'll get a look.
It's
You know,
tradition at this
yeah,
point.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, who knows? I think, if and when he does get called up to the NHL, I don't see him looking out of place. He's got the physical skills, and the only question will be, can he handle it mentally at this point. He's still, Greg, I think he's 21. He doesn't turn
Uh
22 till September. So he
yeah,
started
yeah,
when
I
he
think you're
started
right.
college, he was 17.
Yes.
So, which it's such a rarity, you know, when he was at his first training camp in Northeastern, he was 17 years of age still, which is pretty
Yeah.
impressive, you know. So
And he's
there's no
thinned
rush
out a
on
little
him.
bit.
What's that?
He's also thinned out. He was when he was drafted, he was about 200 pounds. Now he's down about 5 or 6 pounds from that, but you can tell he's much stronger.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's sinewy, you know. It's funny when I talk to him, he's never fought. He never fought in college, and never really fought in minor hockey because they had the cages on and stuff. And but he told me he could handle himself. So you know, he's been in a scrap or two, so on pavement, I guess, or whatever, at some point in his life, and knows, like he said, I can throw him, I can throw both hands, so he's I asked him about it because the way he rocks guys, and there's going to be guys that challenge him. Like, it's coming really soon, and
Yeah. And his hits are all clean. So
yeah,
they're
but it
just
doesn't seem to
challenging clean
matter,
hits. No, it doesn't
you know.
because
It,
players are soft snowflakes at this point.
well, yeah, you can't hit anybody hard anymore, or
Oh,
somebody will come, knight in shining armor will come to the rescue.
because you're
So
hurting their
he's,
pride more than their body.
yeah, yeah, but so he'll be in a scrap sooner or later, and I look forward to seeing it because I think he can really handle himself. He'll be maybe not in the jack eye, because it just weight class type thing, but I think he'll get challenged a couple times in the AHL, and then he probably won't get challenged anymore. That would be my thought on him. So I'm looking forward to that too.
Yeah, I truly think that between him and Trudeau, down in Laval, that the options for Hughes to make trades with left-handed defensemen skyrockets because there's so many young players. He can actually package up one or two of these young defensemen in separate deals if he wants to really fill in other gaps in the system.
Yeah, even Norlander hasn't looked that bad. Like, I
True.
mean, he's what, 22. Another left defenseman, and they've got a kid named Hudson that I hear is pretty good too.
I vaguely remember that name. Where have I heard that before?
Yeah. So, left and Engstrom. We haven't even mentioned Adam Engstrom, who might be my favorite,
Yeah.
sleeper prospect. So, and he had an outstanding season as well. So,
Yeah,
yes,
he worked his
definitely.
way up. He worked his way up Rogel's
Yeah,
roster really quickly.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And there's they could trade two or three defense prospects over the next couple of years and still be fine. They got Jacky Gooley, like, you know,
Harris.
um, yeah. Um, and then on the other side, Kovacevic, uh, you know, Mailloux, Barron. I think they'll probably. I don't know if you're going to ask me this question or not about who they might pick it in the top 10. Was that
Yeah,
something that
yeah,
was
that's
on
good.
the?
That's going to be coming up. But I wanted to ask you about Mailloux first
Okay.
because he's had himself an excellent offensive season.
Yeah.
And the games that I've watched 6 different games of his, and in all of them, he looked very, very good. But there are still gaps in his game.
Yeah. 6 games you've seen.
Yeah.
Where's the scouting report for recruits?
Well, I
Uh-huh.
mean,
So the truth comes out. Well, I'm going to be bugging. As soon as we're off the air here, you're getting a text about that.
uh-oh, uh-oh.
I want to I want to Blain Potvin special. It's been a while since you wrote an article for recruits too, so
Yeah, it
you
has.
might have
Well, I
to.
mean,
That
that
might be the one. We'll
might
just
be.
you got to commit to it right here on air. So then,
I don't know. I got to ask my wife permission first.
okay, that's fair enough. That's fair enough.
See,
So,
smart.
so Logan, yeah, in the playoffs, there he was averaging 28 minutes a game and was on for 2 goals against, facing Colby Barlow. You know, pretty much every shift. Like all these scouts, so-called scouts or whatever, that come on and say that he's atrocious. I've read a lot of comments about, oh, he's atrocious defensively, and over the last couple of years, and it's just, I mean, he needs work, but he's
He's
played
raw.
less than 100 OHL games. You
Yeah.
know, like defense is not something that you just learn sitting up in the stands for 2 years. I don't care if he was 23. He's still got repetitions. He's still got situations that he has to experience in game situations where you learn. Okay, my positioning has got to be better there. Oh, I shouldn't try to rush there. I should pass quicker. I mean, and I've seen a progression as years gone on with all that. But if he was terrible defensively, would Dale Hunter use him? On his first PK, 4-on-3s, 28 minutes a game on the top pairing against other teams' top pairings. When they're up a goal, he's on the ice. I'll trust Dale Hunter's uh, feeling on his defensive game more so than people on Twitter that are saying that he's horrific defensively. But sure, he's still got he still makes mistakes that could be corrected. But when you're playing 28 minutes a game, you're 100 to 200 puck touches a game. You're going to have mistakes, whatever level you're playing at. So you take the good with the bad, and there's a heck of a lot more good than bad with Logan Mailloux.
Well, he plays such a physical style as well. He's willing to engage physically, especially on the defensive side. The 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 parts that I've seen that I felt were a bit raw were he overcommits on the physical side at times, trying to
Mm,
compensate for positioning.
right. Well, that's not a bad thing, is it?
No, it's
You
not
know?
terrible. It's That's something that could be fixed with the right coaching.
Oh, yeah.
Not that
Better to
Dale
rein.
Hunter's doing a bad job.
I'd rather rein in than, whip, you know?
Yeah.
Uh, like, those things are teachable. And I'd much rather him have a physical side to him. And, I mean, Struvel's the same way in college at that age. They've had to work on him, and you can see already that he's learned in the last couple of years where, oh, whoa, just don't overcommit to the hit. Your time will come to hit. You don't have to nail guys every shift. And yeah, and again, he's played 100 games or so at the OHL level, and it's a matter of reps. And he'll probably go to Laval. Like, I expect that he'll play in Laval next year just because he needs more experience. But he'll probably score 15, 20 goals next year as an AHL rookie and get called up and halfway through the year and be an NHLer for the rest of his career. That's what I expect.
And that's partly problem as well because of his off ice issues and the NHL's unwillingness to allow him to join the league, even though he's under contract. I guess the Canadiens have to pay a tax. I have no idea. But would he be better off to be part of a trade somewhere so he can get a fresh start?
How did you cough without there being a sound? I'm pretty impressed by that. No, I'm just, yeah, yeah. Only man I've
I
ever
have a
met
mute button.
that can cough without making a noise. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, uh, I don't foresee a problem with him. There you go again. Um, I don't, uh, Liam McGuire, tweeted a good point about, uh, Craig McTavish, Danny Heatley. They got reinstated after they paid their penance. You know, did, you can't say what he did was worse than what they did. So,
I mean, Dan, Danny
how can
Heatley, Danny Heatley killed someone.
so did Craig McTavish. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, that's
you
pretty
know,
bad.
yeah, I put it a notch above. So I think that he'll be reinstated, and um, I'm the fact that they allowed Montreal to sign him to a contract. I think told that was that was the signal from the NHL that he'll be reinstated when his junior season's over and he applies or whatever it is, unless something happens between now and then. But hopefully not. He's been, from all indications and talking to Rob Ramage and even meeting Logan myself, like I think he's figured out a lot.
Yeah.
He's kept his nose clean and has learned from his mistake and is doing everything that he needs to do to move on from it and grow.
We'll look forward to seeing
Can't
what'll
hear you.
happen with him. You
There
can
you
hear me
go.
now? There we go.
Yeah.
I do look forward to seeing what'll happen with him next season, but I'm really enjoying what he's doing in the playoffs right now. So I want to go to the draft. Uh, Actually, I am going to go to the draft. Am I going to see there?
Yeah. You're heading
Going to
to
Nashville?
Nashtown?
Yeah.
Not me, no.
You don't want to go
They
watch
won't
some
allow me in the
drag
States.
shows?
No, I'm kidding. Yeah. No, no, I'm not going to Nashville. Not a country
That's a
music
shame.
band. No. They had it in Memphis or Detroit Rock City. Count me. I'll be there in millisecond.
Anyhow, the Canadiens will be there, and they're going to be picking early. Now,
Yeah.
right now they sit at around 5. I'm guessing they'll be 5 or 6. That's my guess. So, looking at your list, you have several very interesting names, some that are a little bit different than other public lists.
Huh.
Now, I like your method of putting the list together because you take into account comments from multiple scouts.
Yeah, I do. NHL scouts.
Yeah.
I,
So you
I,
have a little bit more of a finger on the pulse of what NHL scouts are thinking.
yeah. Well, I'm fortunate enough to have worked as a scout in the NHL and got to know some NHL scouts through the years and kept contact and became good friends with. And we talk draft all the time. So yeah, I weigh in what they say quite heavily because they're the ones going to the rink 200 times a year. They can afford it, Well, it's not that they can afford it; their clubs can afford it. I don't have anybody paying me to fly around the world to see these kids all over. So I do a pile of video scouting and get out to as many games as I can, but nothing beats seeing them live, and nothing beats the opinions of NHL scouts. I don't think because they're the ones getting paid the big bucks. They're the ones that have been doing it for all of the guys that I rely on for their input or I've all scouted at least 15 years in the NHL. So I think it's one of the things about scouting is the more experience you get, the more, you learn from your mistakes because every scout makes mistakes. And I think it's so handy to get that experience and to rely on these people with experience to not only mentor me, but to, steer me in the right direction when I make my lists. And, I can like a kid on video, but I may not be seeing something that they do, seeing them live 3 or 4 times. So it's I rely heavily on these guys. I kind of how I approach it is they're like my scouting staff, even though they're 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 here and I'm here, right? But I get their input, and I make the final decision on my rankings based on what I see as well, and try to put together a list that reflects probably where most NHL teams are leaning towards when it comes to drafting, but also with my own and their obviously input on guys specifically. So uh, it's fun doing every year. I mean, it's you never get it right, but uh you know I mean, if you got it right, it'd be boring if you got it right all the time. So it's never boring, put it that way.
It must be why every wife in the world is always bored with their husbands because they're
Yeah,
always right.
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
But I'm looking at your list and it's quite different. I mean, clearly the top two are the same as everybody else's because it's just that obvious that they're cut above. But I'm looking down the list and you've got a couple of players who are much higher, who are landing around 5 and 6. Daniil Boo, for instance, you have him fairly high.
yeah. Scary high.
Yeah,
Boo. No,
Boo, but Boo,
Butte. He's
Butte.
a Butte. I don't know how you pronounce it, but the
Yeah,
butt guy.
butt
He
guy.
yeah, and it's funny, like you talk to NHL scouts and oh, I loved them 2 years ago. They didn't really say to once it's like you keep seeing him and it's like, holy geez, this guy is like 6'5" and he's got skill like rare skill for that size. Like in the Malkin Kopitar, more skilled than Kopitar really with the puck. Just that package that you say, okay, this is rare. Um, if he wasn't Russian, he might well be, 3 or 4 on a lot of lists. And I think uh, I decided that I'm going to do my list and not weigh in the Russian factor on it because I don't think I can do it any other way. Um, and there's going to be stars beside these guys. Asterisk there saying, don't expect them to get it picked as high as I have them ranked, just because I wouldn't. If I was an NHL GM, I probably wouldn't take Butte top five, or maybe even not Michkov, um, because they're signed for 3 years in the KHL, both of them. Uh, you don't know if they're ever going to come over. You don't know how they're going to develop. You have no say in their development. Uh, there's just so many factors. You don't know how the war's going to go. Um, a lot of people are kind of a bit clued out with just how serious things are and how fractured the relationship is between Russia and the West now. Like, and they're being fed propaganda all the
I
time.
have a
Do they
pretty good
even
idea with,
do? Yeah, right.
yeah,
Do you like? Do they even want to come over? Some of these kids, they might not even want to.
yeah. They still have access to specific social media sites,
True.
so
True.
there's still contact between the West and these players, and the
Yeah.
NHL is still that gem, right?
Oh,
It's still
sure.
got that gleam that everybody wants to see, especially out there. Um, but with Daniel Boo, if he did slide, say to 15 to 20, if that's where the Canadiens are going to pick with their second pick, would you use that pick?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Montreal is one of those teams that should consider it at 15 or whatever, 20, because they have two picks. You know, I think teams with multiple picks have to consider these Russians that they slide, because you have the other guy you know, to bounce, to rely on. If he doesn't pan out well, you still got the other guy, right? Um, but if they both pan out, wow, you could have two home runs, and there aren't going to be too many teams that have two home runs out of this draft. So,
No. And that would make a huge impact on the rebuild itself. 3 years down the line, if you get a couple of home runs in this draft, that that'll turn a team from a really good playoff team to a contender.
yeah. And I think, there's still a need for some size. Like, you look at all the young wingers on the team
Yeah.
aside from Slavkovsky, a lot of them are under 6 feet, the prospects. So you want to kind of get a mix in there. And 6'5" winger would be nice with his skill set in the top six, like
Yeah.
him and Slavkovsky. Whew. I mean, there's different things you could do. You could put him with Doc and Slavkovsky and have the most skilled 6'4" plus line in the league down the road.
The Oak line.
Well, how do you stop them
This is
cycling the puck? Those three when they're
exactly.
in their prime, you know. Ideally, you probably put one with Caulfield, and you get that mix where you got, and then one with whoever out of the small wingers ends up getting the other second line winger spot, be it Roy or Farrell or um, RHP, uh, you know, um, all of those guys are undersized as well. Roy's not as undersized, but he's still below the league average in size. So, ideally you get that mix in the top six where there's you know, you don't have two small wingers on the same line. At least one of them's bring some size and it can do the board work and get the pucks, fish the pucks out like you do, Blain, in your is that your job or what?
Uh,
Beer league?
my job is to fill the water bottles
Yeah. There you go.
with beer.
Yeah. Uh,
I'm a pro at that. Um, but I back to the list and the Canadiens. There's several centers that you have hovering around there. We talked about Danil Boo. Another one, and one that I really like, is Dalibor Dvorsky.
Yeah. Boo's not a center, but um,
He's played a couple of games there, but he's definitely going to be a winger
he's going to
when
be
he
a
moves
winger.
up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Dvorsky, he's versatile. He can play either, but I see him as a center. You know, loved the
Yeah.
way he shut down uh, the big guys at the World Juniors as a 17-year-old. You know, goes out against Cooley, shuts him down for the most part. Goes out against Bedard's line and really did a fantastic job. Slovaks played the Canadiens really hard.
Oh, it
Both
was a
games.
tight
So
game.
yeah,
Very tight
yeah,
game.
it was a really tight semifinal there. So or a quarterfinal. I forget.
Quarterfinal.
Quarterfinal. Yeah, we almost didn't make the semis with Bedard putting on the show in large part because of Dvorsky. You know,
Yes.
I mean, at that age to be able to do that, just I'm surprised at how many people are under. They just keep looking at his stats and playing in the men's league and say, "Oh well, he can't be top 10 because he doesn't have great stats." Well, 17 years old. The best stat that was that he played 38 games or whatever it was, as far as I'm concerned, and most of them at center in a top three role. That you know, and then every time he plays junior, every time he plays World Junior, or anyone close to his own peers, he produces. So, I yeah, he doesn't have fantastic offensive upside, but he's going to be such a good shutdown centerman with size,
Yeah.
competitiveness. Hockey's always going to be played with two nets, right? So it's just as important to keep him out of your own net as it is to put him in the other. So coaches are going to love him. He'll play a huge role, whatever team he lands with, and him and Kapanen and Beck. Imagine those three together on your third line. You
Don't
know,
have to worry about the defense, that's for sure.
oh, I mean, they could all be just fantastic third line centers in the NHL. I think they all have second line center potential. So, but again, that's adding the guys that can play center to your top nine. Ideally I wouldn't mind them having five or six guys that can play center that are in their top nine
Yeah.
and that can play any situation. You can move it around. So
And with Dvorsky, I see him as someone who has an upside of 50 to 60 points, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you put that together with the defensive aspect of his game, that is someone
oh
who can impact a game tremendously, especially in the playoffs.
yeah, Phil Deneau. How good was
Yeah.
you know one of the huge reasons why Montreal went from almost winning the Stanley Cup to finishing at the bottom of the standings was because they lost Deneau.
Yes.
And then LA went from being mediocre to being a playoff team. It's 2 straight years. Well, it makes such an impact having that all round player. He's been compared to guys like Braden Shen, Ryan O'Reilly. I even see a bit of like Bergeron type, that potential. I mean, you know, if you put Bergeron with second line wingers, as it is, he's a 70, 60 to 70 point guy playing with Pasternak and Marchand. Well, if you put a Dvorsky with guys of that caliber, he's going to be a 70, he's going to be a 60, 70 point NHL center too, you know? So, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying he's the next Bergeron, but he's one of the prospects in the last 15 years that reminds me the most of a Bergeron type, like that has that potential. Not, last year it was said about Wright and I didn't think it was true.
It wasn't
But
right.
this kid, I, I see that type of potential. So yeah, it would be exciting to get him. I think he'd be a great a great ad at 6-5 for sure. He's in my top five, and so I mean anybody in my top five that the Habs end up with, I think is is great. So
I wouldn't mind the Canadians getting Fantilli personally. That's me.
at five,
Maybe Bedard. Maybe
well, yeah, that goes
we'll
without
find
saying.
out.
That I
Yeah,
love them to win the lottery, but I think it's 44% chance that they draft sixth.
yeah. It's more likely
If
they
they end
draft
up
sixth than
five,
anything else. Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And if they end up sixth, it's probably 44% chance that they end up seventh or
No, it's still
something
sixth.
close to that, right?
Yeah. Yes. Doesn't matter if they finish fifth or sixth. Six still has the most possibility. Seven is the next one, and then five is the third one.
Like if they finish fifth, the biggest possibility is that they move back one. If they
Yeah.
finish sixth, I would suspect the biggest possibility is that they move back one, right?
The biggest possibility is they stay put.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, it's
All right.
still around 40 some odd percent.
Okay.
But I would expect they move down another one anyway, because why not? They got to make sure Arizona gets that top pick in there somewhere.
Yeah. Well, they won it last year, so
Hopefully, Phoenix sues the Arizona Coyotes for that first pick.
Yeah. There
But
you go.
so before we finish off the show, I wanted to ask you about the top defenseman. Now, there is an outside chance the Canadians go with a defenseman that early. I don't think so, but it could happen. Now, you've got a couple of defensemen in your top 10. Which one of these two defensemen would you rather pick? Would it be Reinbacher or Gulyayev? Gulyayev.
Gulyayev?
Gula Gula Gula.
Yeah.
Goody Goo Goo. Goony Goo Goo.
Yeah. Gully. We'll just call him Gully. No, they're not taking Gulyayev. I wouldn't think there's even a remote possibility of that in their top six. But I mean, he's 5'10" Russian defenseman. But I love him. I mean, he's the best skater. He's a bet. I think he's a better defender than Quinn Hughes and skates every bit as well. He's obviously not going to be the playmaker that Hughes is, but uh, he I think he could be an impact NHL defenseman if he comes over. Who knows? But yeah, I think there's a very if honestly, if you ask me who I think Montreal, I think Reinbacher is would be the guy that they target more than even the forwards, to be honest with you. The reason being for that, for me, is that, well, I mean, if you take Dvorsky, let's say, you don't expect him to be better than Suzuki. You don't, is he going to be better than Doc? So does he end up being your third line center or second line winger or maybe first line winger? Reinbacher could be top pairing right defenseman, and if not, he'd be the second pairing right defenseman. I see him being an ideal partner for Hudson down the road. I think he needs a big, all around solid defenseman as his partner down the road. And I don't know that Mailloux ultimately will be that. And so you put Mailloux with Goulet and you put Hudson with Reinbacher and, trade everybody else. No, but like you let everybody else fight it out for those other two spots. Jack you love the element that he brings, right? So you think maybe he's the other left defenseman. How many, and that's not even talking about Matheson, right? So, and he's the best defenseman on the Canadiens. So,
Yeah.
obviously we'd be talking 3-4 years down the road for these guys, but Reinbacher can be a top 4 NHL defenseman within a couple of years, I think. And so can Mailloux. So they're on your, they're in your top 2 pairings within 2 to 3 years. That's, I think they can contend at that point. So
Yeah.
that has to be, highly considered. You can never draft too many defensemen, especially right defensemen, because they hold their value, and you can always trade, the ones that don't make it. There's going to be a bunch that I think will have value within the NHL, and you can fill other spots, be it goaltending, big winger, maybe, what have you, uh, with the excess defenseman that you have.
Now with Reinbacher too, he likes to emulate Roman Yossi. That's his favorite defenseman. That's who he idolizes, and you can see some of that in his game. I mean, he skates really well. He's well positioned. He's got a good stick, and he knows how to read the play in his own zone really well. Already, he's a top pair defenseman in the National League out in Switzerland.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that might be why a lot of people are placing him as the next Moritz Seider. A big defenseman who plays in a league that's normally not seen as high end when it comes to competition.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, he's not as big as Sider, and probably doesn't have as much offensive upside.
No.
He doesn't shoot like Sider. He's not quite as strong as Sider, but yeah, I think because Sider had such success at such an early, coming over, that I think that may result in him being drafted higher than people expect. You know, it's been more than 25 years since the NHL didn't pick a defenseman in the top 5 in the draft. So, will this be the year that there isn't? Well, there's such value. Like Reinbacher, I can't see him not being a 20 plus minute a game defenseman once, in his prime.
High
And
value.
that value, is it's such value for a team. And plus these guys, unless they put up monster points, you don't have to pay them $10 million a year either, right? So, you're in his prime. If he's a top pairing defenseman, he's making 5-6 million a year, playing 23 minutes a game. You can't beat that value. So, if
He
he's
only
there,
had, but he only had 2 points in the World Juniors. He can't be that good.
yeah, Austria, those great line mates that he had, how could he not have got more points?
Yeah, exactly. My God. Not to mention the fact that he was not eating solid food that entire time.
Yeah, that might have helped. That might have had something to do with it.
Would have.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he down the stretch in the Swiss league, he put up uh, really good points as the season went along, and in the playoffs, scored some big goals. Yeah, showed that he has some offensive upside for sure. So I could see him being a 40, in his best years, being a 40 plus point guy that plays all situations. And um, I think that would be a great addition to the right side of the Canadiens in the future.
I mean, they do need right defensemen. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a possibility.
Well, hopefully he's there. And if he is, then it's certainly going to be one of the options, I think, for sure.
Uh, well, giddy up.
Yeah. So I've convinced you. Didn't take much, eh?
No, no, I'm not convinced yet.
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
I still love this random name guy from like in the middle of the people's draft list. He's gonna climb up for sure.
Yeah.
Random name bunch of numbers is gonna make his way up.
Yep. Well, I think our 45 minutes is up, sir.
I think so. I really do. appreciate the time that you've given me. I do appreciate you coming on the show again and
Okay.
sharing a little bit of this and basically shooting the breeze about prospects and the Canadiens and everything else.
It's
Um,
always fun.
so yeah, I always do have fun. That's why I send you weird text messages every now and then, just see what happens. So why
All
don't you
good.
just remind everyone where they can find all this great stuff?
Yeah. Um, what great stuff. No, I'm
Your
kidding.
stuff.
Oh, right. Oh, okay. Well, like it's only great when you contribute. So,
Oh,
um, I'll be expecting that report, Mailloux report, sometime in the next 2 weeks. And everybody goes to recruit.ca, recruits.ca. That's how it's spelled. No I. And follow me on Twitter if you don't mind the odd anti-Trump post. I mix the odd one in there. Uh, you know, so
you
admittedly, I'm not a
lefty.
Trump. Admittedly, I'm not a Trumper. And yeah, if you can put up with that, um, I post lots of good prospect stuff on Twitter and give my opinions on the Canadiens and give the odd dig to Blain and all
Yeah,
the good stuff.
basically like everybody else.
Yeah.
Dig on Blain. Yeah, it's a good thing I have big shoulders.
Yeah.
So no, I really do thank you for coming back, and I can't wait to have you come back again a little bit later, sometime this summer, perhaps before the draft. We'll
Hopefully.
see.
Yeah, okay.
And if you do find a way to get down to Nashville, I know a really good place.
Okay. A rock there's a rock bar down there somewhere.
Oh no, there's all kinds of blues bars. I'm going to be in heaven.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, they've got a good eclectic mix there. You'd be surprised it's not all country, that's for sure. You have
But
fun.
again, thank you very much for coming on the show, and for my listeners, thank you guys for listening. Thank you for sharing your ideas, your thoughts, your requests for guests.